One. Great. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if there's a speaker system, but I'll just try to speak up. My name is Tom Wallen. Wait, are we getting me? There we go. All right, my name is Tom Wallen. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Dell Technologies, and I'm going to be introducing you guys today to Dell NativeEdge, which is our new edge software management platform we've been developing over the last several years. So before we get started, I just want to level set on what we mean when we talk about edge, because I know there's a lot of different definitions out there. And at Dell Technologies, what we say is the edge is the place where data is acted on nearest its point of creation. So it's very, very context and industry specific. If you're a retailer, your edge is your retail store or your trucks or your distribution centers. If you're a manufacturer, your edge is your factory floor. If you're an energy provider, it is your substations, it is your power poles. And so the edge is an extremely diverse place. And a couple years ago, we really started to look at the edge as a discrete entity outside of the data center. And we have a business unit dedicated to researching it. And so we asked our customers what they were doing. And we found that 40% of them said that the edge was central to their IT decision-making strategy. The edge is where the business is investing. It is where IT can become a differentiator and an innovator. And so that is where CIOs and IT decision makers were focusing their time. But it was also introducing a significant amount of complexity. Over a majority of their time, 56% was spent battling the complexity in terms of getting their edge under the control. And of course, this isn't just an opportunity, but it was really quite urgent, as 60% of them said that their competitors would be able to pull market share or to gain a competitive differentiation over them if they were able to start utilizing their data insights or acting on their data in a better way for their customers. And so the edge really started to become a focus for us. So we really started to research into what made the edge different from managing applications and infrastructure inside of the data center. And we found that the edge obviously has a lot of unique challenges in the way that IT needs to take a look at it. And of course, environmental and hardware diversity is first. The edge is an extremely unclean place. If you're on an oil rig or a concrete factory or factory floor, the types of infrastructure that are there is also extremely diverse. You're dealing with IoT sensors and gateway devices and edge servers and different types of form factors. And so the ability to manage that adds a sort of exponential level of complexity on its own. And of course, the types of applications and workloads that are managed there have traditionally been under the oversight of the OT group, the business groups, what we call the operational technologists. So these are often, more often than not now, AI workloads that are constantly needing to inference on the vast amounts of data that is being generated there. If you're looking at a machine and you have a camera that is watching the physical products go off of there, of course, AI is looking at that and doing it, and it takes the different types of application complexity. And of course, the edge is not just one place. It is extremely distributed, and the edge is actually thousands or tens of thousands of individual sites that need to be managed in concert and simultaneously. And of course, you're doing all of this without any local IT support. So IT, unless you're in a very specific position where you have 2 or 3 different factories and these are your business centers where you can have an IT staff on site full time, you're going to need to manage all of this infrastructure remotely and without any IT support on site. Security also then takes a different meaning when you can no longer have this locked inside of your data center behind lock and key. If you're lucky, you'll have a closet that has a lock on it that you'll be able to put this infrastructure inside of. So you need to take a look at security and think of it from a zero trust form instead of giving permissions or absolute authority to different users or applications on how they're running. And of course, there was a lot of silos and proliferation at the edge. The edge, as we said, was part of the OT business unit, but there's a dozen different business units, and what we saw at the edge was often that the loss prevention team would have their own application stack that they deployed to run their security and surveillance system, and then the POS system was running on a completely different site, and before you know it, you have 5, 6, or a dozen different discrete infrastructures running discrete applications with their own management stacks. And so we decided that any solution that we were going to build needed to be done without any local IT resources, so an emphasis on zero-touch deployment and remote access and manageability, zero trust from the ground up, both from the infrastructure and the applications and the behavior of the systems as it's running. Connectivity challenges is very big here as well. Of course, network connectivity and bandwidth cost is one of the big reasons that companies invest in edge in the first place. You couldn't necessarily beam all of that data back to your data center, but the ability for these sites to be able to operate in network outage conditions and autonomously is something that we needed to architect for. And we really wanted this to be flexible. So regardless of your scale, whether you just have a couple dozen or a couple tens of thousands of edge devices, we wanted a solution that was going to be able to scale seamlessly, and of course a solution that is multi-cloud by design. These edge applications do not just sit at the edge, they are communicating and are inextricably linked with what is running inside of your data centers or running inside of your public clouds. And so our solution, we want to make sure you can manage your applications and deploy them regardless of where these applications sit. So without further ado, we created Dell NativeEdge, an edge operation software platform that is meant to simplify your edge by automating your edge operations. So we took this in a number of discrete pillars. The infrastructure management side, we talked about zero-touch deployment, but day one is really just the initial challenges, and of course lifecycle management is another significant challenge. The ability to keep your OS, your firmware, your BIOS on all of these different devices is a core tenet of Dell NativeEdge, and the application side as well, to the ability to push, deploy, and lifecycle those applications regardless of whether these are homebrewed, with container or VMware based, whether they are third party or something you've created inside. We want to give you the ability to package and deploy these applications remotely and with zero touch across your entire edge estate seamlessly. So Dell NativeEdge, what we really want to do is make sure that we are accelerating your ability to secure and scale your edge by simplifying your edge operations, by optimizing the investments you've made at the edge, and by securing your edge with those zero-touch principles. When it comes to edge operations, we are talking about zero-touch deployment, or what we call secure device deployment. So this is the ability to drop ship a device directly to your site, to plug it in, and it's for it automatically update and for your IT operators to decide what applications should be sitting on those devices and for it to be managed automatically. To be done centrally, and of course through our app orchestration and blueprint catalogs. So the ability for you to package and template your own applications into your own catalog and to push these devices and to push those updates automatically, something that we want to do. In terms of optimizing your investments, what we're looking at is both the consolidation of technology stacks, so the ability to run all of your applications on a single consolidated, modernized application stack, but also for the ability for you to give a consistent experience across all your devices. So Dell is a hardware company. Traditionally, we make our bones by selling you servers that are bundled with this type of application management or infrastructure management solutions, but because we saw the edge as an extremely diverse place where Dell will probably only play in a small portion, we want to give you the ability to decide what applications, what hardware, what management software that you're running, and to use this software platform, it is a software-only platform, to manage any application or any hardware that you already have deployed at the edge or that you will deploy at the edge. And of course, security could be its own presentation, but I do want to talk a little bit about what Dell's secure supply chain does here. When you're talking about the edge, you no longer have the ability for IT to vet and to verify every device that comes through unless you really want to spend that amount of life cycle. So the ability for us to drop ship hardware directly to your site that has been indelibly marked from the silicone all the way through the software, and for NativeEdge to be able to verify the authenticity of that device before onboarding it into your network. So you can be assured that every device that you're plugging into your edge network, all tens of thousands of them, are the correct, original, untampered with device. So let's just take a look at what this would mean. Let me make sure I'm not too far off time. I didn't start the timer. Let's take a look at what this would mean if we're actually rolling this out. So let's take a look at a cold chain storage management solution. So if you're a retailer and you sell a product like ice cream, it's really important that that ice cream stays at temperature throughout the entire life cycle of the product. So from the manufacturing to the warehousing to the shipping to the in-store time, you need to have full visibility of the temperature throughout all of this. So the way you would do that is take all of your different coolants and refrigerators and all of these different devices, to deploy sensors on them attached to edge compute systems, and to have full visibility on that throughout the entire process, and do that across all of your stores and your trucks. So if we were doing this in a store, the first thing that you would do is that an IT team, hopefully it's just an individual, but it could be multiple people to deploy the hardware and the software discreetly, to roll out all of those different compute devices to all of those stores and trucks and warehouses independently. They would be responsible for doing all of the lifecycle management on site locally, and as well as securing and installing the applications on each of those devices. You would need to not do that for one store, you need to do that for all 1,100 stores. So you may have tens of thousands of different devices that need to be rolled out individually by IT resources, and an administrator would be responsible for running all this, but in the end you have a significantly compromised security network, because where did all this hardware come from that was deployed here? Hopefully this was the correct hardware. It took you a very, very long time for you to get up and running, tens of thousands of truck rolls to get going. And of course, each of those applications are managed in their own silo, and so life cycling all of this is going to be impossible, because updating it is going to look very similar to deploying it on day one. With NativeEdge, what we have is the ability to drop ship this system preloaded with our software to each individual site. So all you need is an individual. It could be a partially trained, it could be a third party, to plug in the device, and it would automatically install with the application software and infrastructure BIOS and firmware that your IT operators choose to go on those devices. This would be the exact same experience for all 1,100 locations, so it's much, much faster to get up and running. And so your time to value is much faster. The ability for you to manage this infrastructure is much more seamless. And so I'm getting the time, but we did this with a customer, and what we found is that we saved over $1 million, over 100% ROI just on the deployment sector alone. And when you take the lifecycle management automation costs of the applications, that doubled to over $2 million, as well as 3,600 metric tons of CO2 saved just in all of those truck rolls for all of the lifecycle management. So that is my time. I encourage you all to take the survey. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me up front. I'm sure I can go into much more detail than I was able to get through here. But please visit us in the Dell Technologies booth as well on the floors. We got a lot more demonstrations. We have some of our new servers that we're showing off as well. And you can go to dell.com/nativeedge to learn more about the specific software and to see some more demonstrations. So thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of your VMware Explore.